Imagine the world of the 1980s, when Ferrari Testarossa, Lamborghini Countach, and Porsche 959 dominated the bedroom posters of teenagers dreaming about supercars. In the middle of that era, however, a machine appeared that looked as if it had arrived from an alternate reality in which Mercedes-Benz had decided to build its own rival to the Italian exotics. The car had gull-wing doors, a mid-mounted Mercedes V8 engine, a futuristic silhouette resembling a Le Mans prototype, and a name that sounded like the title of a science fiction movie: the Isdera Imperator 108i. What makes the story even more extraordinary is the fact that the car was not developed inside a massive factory or under the control of a giant automotive corporation. Behind the entire project stood a single man. Eberhard Schultz, an eccentric German engineer and designer who believed he could create a better sports car than the world's greatest manufacturers. The Imperator was a machine born from passion, obsession, and enormous ambition. It was created inside the tiny Isdera workshop, where every car was built almost entirely by hand, according to the wishes of individual customers. Over a production period lasting nearly 9 years, only around 30 examples were completed, making the Isdera Imperator one of the rarest supercars ever built. For many collectors, it remains almost mythical, a combination of German engineering, prototype car styling, and the fearless madness of the 1980s. It is a car that still looks like an experimental concept, never intended for production, and yet it really existed, really drove on public roads, and really challenged the biggest names in the supercar world. The story of Isdera begins with Eberhard Schultz himself, a man who dreamed about designing sports cars from a very young age. Schultz was not a traditional engineer, shaped by the corporate structures of a major automotive company. He was largely self-taught, intensely creative, and obsessed with perfection. As a young man, he built his own sports car called the Imperator GTE, and then drove it directly to the headquarters of Porsche and Mercedes-Benz as a living demonstration of his talent. Instead of presenting a normal resume, he arrived in a hand-built machine of his own creation. The strategy worked brilliantly. Porsche was so impressed that they hired him almost immediately. Schultz later worked for both Porsche and Mercedes-Benz, gaining valuable experience in sports car design, testing, and engineering development. During the 1970s, he also became associated with B+B GmbH, the company owned by famous tuner Rainer Buchmann. It was there that the project eventually leading to the Imperator truly began to take shape. Schultz dreamed of creating a modern successor to the legendary Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing, a car that would be just as futuristic and revolutionary as the famous icon from the 1950s. He wanted to combine Mercedes' elegance with the aggressive appearance of Italian supercars and the advanced technology of motorsport machines. The result of those ambitions became the Mercedes-Benz CW311 concept, first revealed in 1978. The car looked like a machine from the future and immediately attracted enormous attention from journalists, engineers, and automotive enthusiasts around the world. The Mercedes-Benz CW311 was the direct ancestor of the Isdera Imperator and was already extremely close to being a fully realized supercar. The concept itself evolved from the experimental Mercedes-Benz C111 prototypes, which Mercedes had used during the 1970s as platforms for testing advanced technologies such as rotary engines, turbo diesels, and aerodynamic innovations. Schultz believed those futuristic ideas deserved to continue, so he designed a machine that would capture the same spirit while becoming a true road-going exotic. The CW311 featured an incredibly aerodynamic wedge-shaped body with an extremely low nose, dramatic gull-wing doors, and proportions that resembled a Le Mans endurance racer more than a traditional Mercedes-Benz. Its drag coefficient was an astonishing 0.311, which inspired the model's name. Remarkably, Mercedes-Benz officially allowed the concept to wear the famous three-pointed star on its nose, despite the fact that the project had largely been developed outside the company's main structure. Public reaction was overwhelming. Many journalists considered the CW311 the natural successor to the legendary 300 SL Gullwing. The car looked futuristic, exotic, and technically advanced. Unfortunately, Mercedes executives were not prepared to commit to production. They considered the project too radical and too expensive for the company's conservative image at the time. Eventually, the CW311 program was canceled. For most engineers, this would have marked the end of the dream, but Eberhard Schultz refused to let the project disappear. Instead, he decided to take the concept with him and build the car independently. In 1982, Schultz officially founded Isdera, a name derived from the German phrase Ingenieurbüro für Styling, Design and Racing, meaning engineering office for styling, design, and racing. From the very beginning, the company was intended to function not as a mass manufacturer, but as an exclusive engineering atelier, capable of creating extraordinary hand-built automobiles. Schultz wanted complete freedom. He did not want accountants, marketing departments, or large corporate boards dictating what his cars should become. The Isdera workshop near Stuttgart was tiny compared with the giant factories operated by Ferrari, Porsche, or Lamborghini. But Schultz compensated for the lack of resources with engineering creativity and obsessive dedication. Every Isdera was effectively custom-built. Customers could not simply walk into a dealership and order one from a catalog. Instead, they often had to contact Schultz personally and discuss the details of their future car directly with him. This made every Imperator feel less like a production vehicle and more like a privately commissioned piece of engineering art. Schultz believed exclusivity mattered more than production volume. He had no intention of building thousands of cars. Instead, he wanted to produce a tiny number of machines that embodied his personal vision of the perfect German supercar. Before the Imperator appeared, Isdera also introduced smaller projects, such as the Spider 033i and 036i. But the true centerpiece of the company quickly became the production version of the CW311. When the Isdera Imperator officially debuted at the Geneva Motor Show in 1984, the reaction was immediate and intense. The production car remained astonishingly faithful to the original CW311 concept. Unlike many prototypes that lose their dramatic styling before reaching the road, the Imperator looked almost identical to the futuristic show car. It featured an extremely low wedge-shaped body, massive rear haunches, dramatic gull-wing doors, and a silhouette resembling a Group C racing prototype. The car measured approximately 4.22 meters in length, 1.83 meters in width, and only around 1.13 meters in height. Standing next to it felt surreal because the roofline sat incredibly low to the ground. The body itself was made from fiberglass, mounted over a tubular steel space frame chassis. This racing-inspired construction method provided excellent rigidity while keeping overall weight relatively low. Depending on the specification, the Imperator weighed between approximately 1,250 and 1,400 kilograms. One of the most unusual visual features of the first-generation cars was the famous periscope-style rear-view mirror mounted on the roof. Schultz believed conventional side mirrors created unnecessary aerodynamic drag, so he designed a system inspired by aircraft and racing technology. The mirror became one of the defining characteristics of early Isdera models. Some customers loved the futuristic appearance, while others considered it impractical and requested traditional side mirrors instead. From a technical perspective, the Imperator was a genuine supercar capable of competing with the best machines of its era. At the heart of the construction was the steel tubular space frame, onto which lightweight fiberglass body panels were attached. The suspension system used double wishbones at both the front and rear, while all four wheels received disc brakes. The car featured fully independent suspension and an exceptionally low center of gravity, allowing it to remain remarkably stable at very high speeds. Power was delivered exclusively to the rear wheels through a 5-speed ZF manual transaxle gearbox. At a time when many luxurious performance cars were beginning to adopt automatic transmissions, Isdera remained loyal to a pure mechanical driving experience. The interior was minimalist, yet highly functional. Numerous switches, instruments, and components were borrowed from Porsche and Mercedes-Benz, ensuring greater reliability and easier servicing. The driving position was extremely low, almost like sitting inside a racing prototype. The huge windshield and low front bodywork provided excellent forward visibility, something many Italian exotics of the period struggled to achieve. Schultz designed the Imperator as a machine capable of sustained high-speed autobahn travel rather than merely a showpiece for wealthy collectors. Aerodynamics and high-speed stability were priorities throughout development, which is why the car behaved with surprising maturity even at speeds beyond 250 kilometers per hour. The greatest strength of the Isdera Imperator, however, was undoubtedly its engines. Every Imperator used a Mercedes-Benz V8 power plant mounted longitudinally behind the seats. The earliest examples were equipped with the famous 5-liter M117 engine, producing around 235 horsepower. In later years, more powerful versions delivering approximately 300 horsepower became available. With that setup, the car could accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in roughly 5.5 seconds, while reaching a top speed of approximately 270 kilometers per hour. But Eberhard Schultz constantly searched for more performance. Subsequent versions received larger 5.6-liter V8 engines, as well as 6-liter AMG-developed units, capable of producing more than 400 horsepower. The most powerful Imperators exceeded 300 kilometers per hour and could sprint to 100 kilometers per hour in less than 5 seconds. These figures place the car directly alongside icons such as the Ferrari Testarossa, Lamborghini Countach, and Porsche 959. Importantly, because the Imperator relied on proven Mercedes mechanical components, it was often more reliable than many Italian supercars of the same era. Customers received a futuristic exotic machine powered by robust German engineering rather than fragile bespoke systems. One of the most iconic features of the Isdera Imperator was its gull-wing doors, directly inspired by the legendary Mercedes-Benz 300 SL from the 1950s. Schultz believed no other door design would suit such a futuristic automobile. When opened, the doors transformed every entrance and exit into a theatrical event. Even during the extravagant 1980s, the sight of the Imperator opening its gull-wing doors drew enormous attention. Combined with the low wedge-shaped body and dramatic proportions, the car appeared to belong in a science fiction film. Surprisingly, despite its extreme appearance, the Imperator was relatively practical for a supercar. The large glass surfaces provided good visibility, and the cabin ergonomics were superior to many Italian rivals. Schultz wanted to build a machine that could genuinely be driven every day rather than simply displayed in a garage collection. As a result, the Imperator featured a reasonably compliant suspension setup, good cabin insulation, and predictable handling characteristics. Many journalists noted that the car felt more mature and usable than other low-volume supercars produced by small independent manufacturers. Unlike certain Italian exotics that demanded constant attention from their drivers, the Isdera could comfortably cruise at high speed for long distances. Production of the Imperator remained extremely limited throughout its life. Between 1984 and 1993, only around 30 examples were completed. Some sources claim exactly 30 cars were built, while others suggest slightly fewer or slightly more. But everyone agrees on one thing: the Isdera Imperator is among the rarest supercars ever created. Each vehicle was assembled almost entirely by hand and often customized extensively according to customer requirements. There were no traditional dealerships. To order an Isdera, buyers usually had to contact Eberhard Schultz directly. The process resembled commissioning a yacht or private aircraft more than purchasing a conventional automobile. Customers could choose engine specifications, interior materials, and numerous styling details. In practice, nearly every Imperator was unique. Production took place inside a small workshop in Leonberg near Stuttgart. The atmosphere resembled an engineering laboratory, far more than a modern automobile factory. Schultz personally supervised many aspects of construction and constantly refined the design. As a result, later cars differed significantly from the earliest examples. In 1991, Isdera introduced a significantly updated version commonly referred to today as the Series 2. The revised model featured a number of styling and technical improvements. The most obvious change was the introduction of hidden headlights concealed beneath dramatic lowering covers. Earlier cars used exposed fixed lamps, but Schultz wanted to return to the more futuristic appearance of the original CW311 concept. The body became smoother and more aerodynamic, with redesigned air intakes and a larger front grille opening. The exhaust system was also relocated. Instead of exiting at the rear, the pipes now emerged ahead of the rear wheel on the passenger side, directly referencing the legendary Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR racing car. Another important change was the removal of the roof-mounted periscope mirror. Although visually spectacular, many customers considered the system impractical, so later cars generally used conventional side mirrors. The Series 2 models appeared more refined and mature, although some enthusiasts still prefer the raw, almost prototype-like appearance of the original cars. The Imperator's interior perfectly reflected the philosophy behind the entire car. It was not extravagantly luxurious in the traditional Italian sense, but it combined craftsmanship, functionality, and mechanical honesty. The cabin was trimmed in leather and equipped with supportive sports seats and a collection of analog VDO gauges. Numerous interior components came from Porsche, helping to improve ergonomics and reliability. The dashboard was clearly focused toward the driver. One of the most distinctive details was the exposed metal gate for the manual shifter, emphasizing the car's mechanical personality. Despite the dramatic exterior styling, the interior remained surprisingly practical and organized. Journalists frequently pointed out that the Imperator offered significantly better visibility than cars such as the Lamborghini Countach or Ferrari Testarossa. The enormous windshield and relatively large side windows prevented the claustrophobic feeling common in many exotic supercars of the era. The car was also more comfortable than many rivals. Schultz believed a true grand touring machine should allow its driver to cover huge distances at high speed without exhaustion. Consequently, the suspension remained relatively compliant despite the car's enormous performance potential. Although produced in tiny numbers, the Isdera Imperator quickly became legendary among automotive enthusiasts. The car rarely appeared in mainstream media, yet fascinated everyone interested in unusual engineering and exotic design. Many journalists argued that the Imperator looked more futuristic than most supercars of its time. Legendary designer Giorgetto Giugiaro reportedly compared the car's profile to the lowered nose of the Concorde during landing. Even today, more than 3 decades later, the Isdera still looks like a machine from the future. The proportions, the low roofline, the massive rear arches, and the gull-wing doors immediately attract attention wherever the car appears. Remarkably, most examples built have survived to the present day. Many owners treated the Imperator less like an ordinary automobile and more like a piece of rolling sculpture. The cars are almost never seen on public roads and appear for sale only extremely rarely. The modern value of the Isdera Imperator has risen dramatically over the last decade. Years ago, these cars could occasionally be purchased for 200 to 300,000 euros. Today, top-quality examples regularly exceed 700,000 euros, while some auction estimates approach or even surpass $1 million. The most desirable cars are generally low-mileage Series 2 examples, equipped with the Mercedes M119 engine and preserved in highly original condition. Cars originally delivered to Japan often command especially high prices because many remained virtually unused for decades. One example offered by R.M. Sotheby's had covered only around 2,000 kilometers and carried an estimated value of up to $850,000. Collectors are drawn to the Imperator because it combines extreme rarity, Mercedes engineering, and the fascinating story of one of Europe's most unusual independent constructors. Although the Isdera Imperator never achieved commercial success, it played an important role in the history of independent supercar manufacturers. Eberhard Schultz proved that a single determined engineer could create a machine capable of competing with the world's most respected brands. The Imperator was built from passion rather than financial logic. Every example possessed its own personality and history. Isdera functioned more like a design atelier than a conventional manufacturer. Schultz later collaborated with numerous companies, including BMW, AMG, Bitter, and Irmscher, while his later creation, the Commendatore 112i, became another icon of niche automotive engineering. Yet for many enthusiasts, the Imperator remains the purest expression of his talent. It is a car that resembles the fulfilled dream of a child obsessed with futuristic prototypes and racing Mercedes machines. Today, the Isdera Imperator remains one of the most extraordinary and mysterious supercars of the 20th century. It stands as proof that the 1970s and 80s still allowed individuals to pursue automotive dreams without the backing of giant corporations or billion-dollar budgets. Eberhard Schultz created a machine that still appears futuristic decades after its debut. The Imperator combined German engineering, racing technology, and science fiction aesthetics into a single unforgettable automobile. Hand-built in a quantity of only around 30 examples, it became an object of obsession for collectors around the world. Every appearance of an Imperator at auction generates enormous excitement because the opportunity to buy one is incredibly rare. The car never defeated Ferrari or Lamborghini in terms of sales numbers, but it achieved something far more important. It became a legend of automotive underground culture. In today's world of hypercars developed by massive engineering teams and controlled by marketing departments, the Isdera Imperator reminds us that some of the greatest automotive creations are born from the obsession of a single individual who simply believes he can build something extraordinary.